Now, I've said this so many times, more than I can count, but when you look at The View, it is by far the most vile program on national live television via ABC for obvious reasons. We know that the Walt Disney Company uses this as a platform to actually push political talking heads, such as Joy Behar, Whoopi Goldberg, and Sunny Hostin to say such terrible things, not just about President Trump and his followers, but also made several comments by politicizing the Charlie Kirk assassination in the worst ways possible, both in the public eye and behind the scenes. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, one thing about The View is that we know that Sunny, Whoopi, and Joy, they've been dealing with a lot of consequences lately, and they are obviously getting very bitter about what's been going on to them personally and on a business level when it comes to their overall status over at ABC. Now, we already talked about this, but they were indeed suspended from a series of episodes throughout this month of November and even December based on how they cursed at a live audience behind the scenes for one of the tapings of The View that happened, of course, last week. We talked about that and exactly what went down over there and how they're dealing with the consequences, and they tend to get mixed up with freedom of speech and the fact that there is no such thing as freedom of consequence. Now, what's interesting here has a lot more to do with Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Whoopi Goldberg getting very much, riled up, getting very much, bitter about the fact that they are actually dealing with consequences coming from the general public now. Now, with both the Hollywood and the entire media still politicizing Charlie Kirk's assassination, especially during the No Kings protest that took place in October, one significant development going on now involves more to do with the hosts of The View, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, and Whoopi Goldberg, who recently attacked the public after they were suspended from a series of episodes for The View for this month after cursing at an audience on the set behind the scenes, and also connected to their Charlie Kirk comments that backfired, many of which were started by Sunny Hostin. Now, for starters, Joy Behar delivered the following: I don't think it's inaccurate at all to say that Trump supporters do engage in fascism. These are the type of people that root for cancel culture and celebrate the failure of public figures. They want to see us get silenced, and that's the greatest threat that we are dealing with right now in our country. It is an insult to say that Trump is our president who loves the American people. This is a man that has a following that lies to his own supporters and values cancel culture to fuel his own ego. And anyone who values Trump enabling the loss of freedom of speech, you should all be ashamed of yourselves. Now, following Joy Behar's comments and attacks on the public, Sunny Hostin then stepped in to make her own comments and attack to the public by delivering the following: if you think it's the American way to step on our set to put not just myself but my co-hosts on the spot to answer personal questions and political questions, to put words in our mouth, then you are just as guilty as Trump is. This cancel culture era needs to come to an end, because I do agree with Joy that that it is a prime example of how terrible our country has become and how the public encourages Trump to keep silencing people like myself that have a voice of a very large following. Now, guys, let me just stop right there about Sunny Hostin and what she's spewing here. Now, when she's talking about the personal questions that she's actually dealing with and that she dealt with behind the scenes for The View's taping when they did a Q&A, or a question and answer session, this had a lot to do with the fact that they had a lot of attendees asking Sunny Hostin about her husband and her ties, or his ties with fraud, and also how there were a lot of questions that came up toward Joy and Sunny about how they actually felt about people out there like Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld of Fox News, mocking them on television, mocking them on Fox News' The Five, and the actual Gutfeld show mocking Joy and Sunny Hostin. And the fact that they were actually questioned about that during the Q&A session, that really seems to actually, have struck a nerve for not just Joy Behar, but also for Sunny Hostin, and how they're now firing back at the public, because that actually ticked them off so much to a point where they actually started cursing and swearing at the live audience behind the scenes, and that's exactly why they were suspended from a series of episodes for not just this month, but also for multiple episodes next month in December. Now, she continues, And if he and his supporters want to poach and take our fans by feeding them lies and a false narrative about our country, this not only confirms what we have all been warning you about Donald Trump, but also about how persistent his administration is to cancel freedom of speech and to prevent that in the media to express what they have done and what they have to say. I am just appalled that we have a man who wants to truly act like a king and make up all of his own rules on how the country should be run, where people aren't even allowed to say what they have to say anymore. Again, guys, another lie coming from Sunny Hostin saying that freedom of speech is dead. They keep getting confused at the fact that, yes, freedom of speech does exist, but freedom of consequences do not. And they keep getting that mixed up. We've seen this coming from multiple people in Hollywood, multiple people in the media, and it's a constant, ongoing issue where they try to actually make that narrative a reality, that freedom of consequence should actually be a real thing. Now, one thing about all of this is that, yes, we do know that Sunny Hostin and Joy Behar, along with Whoopi Goldberg, they are equally trying to just keep up with the anti-Trump messaging campaign. They are obviously having a very tough time accepting the fact that ABC and the Walt Disney Company suspended them from a series of episodes after they actually fire back at an audience behind the scenes during that Q&A session, as we discussed last week. Now, on top of that, she goes on to conclude, it's because of Donald Trump that myself and many of my colleagues are being silenced from their politics and how it's putting so many studios on edge right now about what they can and cannot say. The White House right now is an absolute madhouse, and whoever supports Donald Trump, you absolutely support bigotry running wild in this country. That is just a fact. You all need to fix yourselves. So again, The View hosts are really just going off the rails by really just going at it and attacking Donald Trump supporters. And look, this is exactly why people are so very tired of the media. They're very tired of celebrities or personalities on television or in movies really just forcing their own politics onto the general public, and how it's really just becoming so tiresome. Now, this is exactly why I say that The View is by far the worst program of all on live television, is that you have ABC and Disney that entertain the idea of pushing political talking heads to keep them on air, getting millions of dollars a year for saying such, crazy lies on television, and it just keeps going on and on. Now, we know one thing about all of this is that Sunny Hostin and Joy Behar are definitely just going out of their way to put themselves in a deeper hole. That's a given fact right now. We know that after their suspension took place just last week, and how they will be dealing with over 7 to 10 episodes where they will actually not be present on set. That's obviously, causing them to have a lot of problems with ABC, a lot of issues with the general public, and you know what? I think that they deserve everything that actually came to them after what they did to the live audience behind the scenes. But overall, I would love to hear what everyone has to say about Sunny Hostin, Joy Behar, The View, ABC, Disney, etc., and how they keep on politicizing the assassination of Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump and his presidency and what they're trying to do. And I would like to hear what everyone has to say about that below in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.